Now, if you played Warzone for any amount of time, you may think that Warzone 3 is just like every other entry, with slight variances and obviously a brand new map, but I'm here to tell you 7 things that are wildly different in this new iteration of Warzone compared to some of the other games. So no matter if you're a brand new Warzone player or you've been playing since Verdansk, hopefully these things can help you out. And of course, I want to hear from y'all after the video. What are some things that you have noticed that are wildly different in this Warzone, and maybe be able to help out the community here as well? If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is one place we'll all inevitably visit pretty much every single night, actually, is the Gulag. Now, the map itself has been simplified, which I appreciate. But the way you escape the Gulag if you don't get the kill is you actually have to exfil. So you have a rope that drops once that overtime period starts, and then you literally go up the rope and you win, okay? It's about as quick as capturing the flag in previous entries, but in this case, you can shoot them off of the rope if you have the opportunity to do so. Now, one thing I think that Raven did here to ease up on some of the trolling is they actually put cash all around the Gulag. And so you might have a big money bag in the middle, you might have some on the opponent's side. And so after you get that kill, you have a couple of seconds there where you can grab some of the money. I don't know, that's just the theory, but either way, look for those money bags so that way whenever you get back into the fight, you can buy your partner back or maybe buy your guns. Another thing they did with the Gulag is sometimes you can get upgraded weapons and fully armored up if you win that Gulag, and be on the lookout for Gulag reentry kits that are scattered throughout the map. These things are not hard to come by at all, and then that way you can get another shot at the Gulag if you've already, died and won. And then other times, I don't know if this is actually related to those Gulag reentry packs that you pick up, or if it's something separate, but I feel like sometimes they'll actually give you another shot at the Gulag if you end up losing your first one. So overall, I think they've done a good job here. It's a fairly simple Gulag, right, as far as the map design, and they give you multiple shots here, and that's very nice. It's not like it's hard to get into a match of Warzone. There's less players now, and there's a huge player base to pull from, but at the same time, having another shot to get back into the game is always a good thing. And they kind of give you perks along the way sometimes, and so that's a pretty nice thing. I think overall, this is probably the best balanced Gulag out of them all. Another thing is running a Ghost loadout. So no longer do you have to choose between Ghost and Overkill. You can actually run your Ghost loadout and you can have Overkill at the same time. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't run Ghost a whole lot. I actually like High Alert better. But there's also a perk that players can run to overcome your Ghost anyways, and that's the Bird's Eye perk. Now, I'm not saying Ghost isn't useful, but at the same time, I just don't really use it a whole lot anymore, but at least it doesn't take your ability of having 2 guns away, because that is crucial in this new Warzone with the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the meta. This year's Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3 included, but Warzone 3 specifically, you gotta stick with the meta. I mean, you're going to lose gunfights if you don't, unless you're just an exceptionally good player at movement. I know there's some of you guys out there, but for the rest of us, whether you're, maybe a little bit higher than average or an average or below average player, you want to keep up with the meta. Now, I downloaded an app, it's called Community, and it tells you everything that you need to run, all the attachments. We don't have to worry about any kind of weapon tuning anymore, which is really nice. They simplified that as well. But you want to run your meta. Right now, MTZ interceptors and your WSP swarm, your gun that starts with a P and 7.62. I'm not even going to try to butcher that one. These are all part of your meta guns. You have absolute meta, and then they have good guns and blah, blah, blah. But anyways, it's a really good app that you can download. And, we used to kind of be online before we would start. And I talk to my buddies that don't keep up with it as much. And I'd be like, okay, run this attachment, this one, blah, blah, blah. Now just tell them to download the Community map. Boom, choose the guns you want and run those attachments. Now, that's not always the case. For example, the Swarm, I don't like the iron sights on that gun. Well, I'll run the MK3 reflector and a 100-round drum, because that thing spits bullets out of there super quick. It's kind of like the Fennec or Chris Vector in real life. And so with the 100-round drum, you may be thinking, man, that slows down your movement like way too much, and it actually doesn't. It's really nice in this game. Most loadout or meta loadouts are going to suggest 50 rounds, but if I'm playing in anything, duos or above, I'm running that 100-round drum because it doesn't kill your movement as much as you may think. So I would stick to those metas for the most part, but you could also experiment around with a little bit of them and just make it better cater to your play style. But overall, you definitely want to follow the meta so that way you can win more gunfights. Another thing I want to talk about is your heartbeat sensors. These are the most powerful heartbeat sensors in the game. Not only do they stretch out, I think, over 60 meters, actually, and they're battery operated just like in Warzone 2. But one of the nice things is that they actually don't take your lethal equipment away, right? So you used to have to run either stun or heartbeat or flash or heartbeat. Now that's going to be in the same spot as like your munitions and your armor box. And so sometimes you may have to make some adjustments or stow those other things away, but you can still run your stuns at the same time. If you see those heartbeats laying on the ground, make sure you pick them up. Super powerful in this game. Another thing that's changed big time is the gas mask animation. And so this has been a point of contention basically since Verdansk, where you'd be on the gas line, you'd get into a fight, and then you would have to, you'd pull the gas mask off or you'd put it back on and you'd be ADSing and then it would go to hip fire and it was just a nightmare. And so now I think they have pretty much the best balanced gas mask that you can have, right? No matter if it's a durable or a regular. Once you pick those things up, the player automatically puts them on. It's going to impede your vision just a little bit. Like there's not much to it at all, but this is something that you obviously want to run, especially a durable. But at the same time, you don't have to worry if you're playing the gas. You don't have to really worry about, your character just ripping it off in the middle of ADSing or trying to down a player. He's going to keep that thing on. And then once the gas mask runs out, it just simply runs out and you'll start coughing until you get a new one or you get outside of the gas. Now, one bonus thing I want to talk about that hasn't really changed, but I just want to emphasize is if you're playing the gas line in this one, you're probably going to die. Now, the reason I say that is because in previous war zones like Caldera and Al Mazrah, it was elevation changes. So when you had these big elevation changes and you're trying to run from the gas, if somebody is at the top of a hill, let's say, they're most likely going to lose or win that fight, right? You're going to lose that fight because you're trying to come up away from the gas and going uphill. Well, in Urzikstan, it's a little bit different. There's not so many elevation changes as there are strong points. And there's strong points pretty much everywhere, So you will have snipers that are hiding in buildings, behind glass or, on top of buildings, on top of gas stations. And there's a lot of density to the map. So the last thing you want to be doing is playing that gas line super closely because all it's going to take is one gunfight or one team that's just sitting there waiting on you, and unless you get lucky and they're all looking the opposite direction of you trying to come in, you're most likely going to die. Another thing I want to talk about is when you drop, of course, you have your contracts like your big game bounties, regular bounties, and supply drops, but you also have the yellow planes that will come in the majority of the time, the majority of matches anyways, and they will either have cash drops or they'll have loadout drops. So if you notice that a lot of supply drops or supply contracts are being taken up, you could also, drop on your loadout, right? And those are going to be hot areas too for the most part. But at the same time, it may give you an opportunity to start off with your go-to guns. Now, opening up boxes in Warzone 3 is similar to Warzone 2, where everything just kind of falls on the ground. Now, there's players in the community that want this stuff changed the way it was before when it just used to float above the ground. And that to me makes sense in a way because, you'll have overlapping loot there sometimes that you can't really get to. And of course, sometimes you'll have loot that just falls through the map, and you can't get to it or you can't see it at all. But one thing you want to be on the lookout for in these loot boxes is the vest. So you could run Tempered Vest as one of your perks, but I would really just use that slot for something more useful because you can pick up Tempered Vest in boxes, Comms Vest, or Medic Vest. So your comms vest is actually going to allow your UAV to spread further than what it normally would. Your medic vest will allow you to self-revive or revive your partners quicker. And so all of these vests do something really important. You also have, of course, the tempered vest as well. And so I would save that perk, use it for something more useful, and then check out the loot boxes and pay attention for those vests because all of them are really useful in their own way. Now, I don't think I need to talk about movement because this has been talked about a lot. It is a much faster paced game. It's pretty much like Caldera or somewhere in between Caldera and Verdansk, right? It's not necessarily slide canceling because it doesn't reset your tactical sprint, but it's much quicker than Warzone 2. Okay, and so it's definitely a step in the right direction. I find it more useful in Warzone than I do in multiplayer. And multiplayer, with especially small maps like Shipment, right? People are moving around so quick, and I don't know if it's just literally a spawn issue or if it's players moving around so quick that you will have people spawning on top of each other. In Warzone, this isn't an issue, right? But the game plays faster. One thing that you do want to pay attention for, though, is the audio. Loot boxes and the footsteps are actually a lot lower, but interestingly enough, I find that the footsteps of my own teammates are louder sometimes than that of enemy players. That said, team wipe.
Yeah, there's
Another one.
still getting shot from somewhere.
Got him. So it's really kind of a weird thing. I think audio is going to have to be adjusted. And so by the time you see this video, maybe it's a month or two from now, this might not even be an issue, but it's something I wanted to bring up. So if you notice that, man, I couldn't really hear that player. I almost feel like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just something you want to be aware of. That's some of the most important things that have changed in this Warzone. And so again, I'd love to hear from the community here. What are some things that you've noticed that have changed in the game? Let me know down below. And if anybody has any questions, make sure you ask those as well. Big thanks to you guys for watching. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.